Hey YouTube fans, this is Becky Smith with the National Oregon-California Trail Center in Montpelier, Idaho. And we are at the Big Hill Kiosk, 7 miles south of the Oregon Trail Center, here near Montpelier, Idaho. We are Highway 30, headed south, 7 miles outside the Trail Center. And I'm going to bring you along to show you all about the Big Hill. Now, the Big Hill was one of the steepest descents that the pioneers had to come down prior to the Blue Mountains. They thought that the South Pass was going to be quite an ordeal, but when you come down the South Pass, or when you go up the South Pass, actually, you really don't know you've been up any kind of a pass at all, because it is so gentle of a slope. So what we've done today is brought you here and allowed you to come and see what is available in the Big Hill Kiosk. So the biggest feature of this kiosk that I thought was really neat when we worked on this project about 7 years ago was, and it still is, you can't get to Big Hill to touch and feel yet. The local BLM is working with us to be able to get a paved road out to the base of Big Hill so that you can hike the Big Hill, because it has been designated for hiking, horseback riding, or wagon travel. Now, we were excited about the wagon travel because I think in the 14 years I've been with the Trail Center, we have been able to film us coming down Big Hill. And hopefully this summer we will get a group of us together and we will actually walk you down Big Hill and let you experience that virtually. But in this kiosk, you can see there is a framing here, and there's also a kiosk marker, and I hope the sun will allow me to film this really well. But basically it shows you Big Hill, and you can actually get to visualize, because you're about 4 miles from the actual Big Hill itself standing here. But you should be able to look at the mountains, look down at the kiosk map, and be able to see where they would have come down Big Hill. Now, right here is the way that they came down. And truthfully, when there's a light snowfall on the big hills over yonder, you actually can see the trail better. But this at least gives you an idea of the height of the mountains and what they were coming down. They were basically coming down what's called a draw. It's where two mountains come together at the base, and you're following that down. Now, it gives a little bit of history about James Wilkins. And it also gives a little bit about Theodore Talbot, what they wrote in their diaries. And if you are interested in more information, we have the CR codes available, and one of them links to our actual website, and one of them links to bearlake.org, which is our Convention and Visitors Bureau. So let's take another look at this beautiful valley. Now, I'm filming this in May, about the 27th of May, 2020. And of course, Bear Lake is so beautiful. Give you a little bit of history. From Cheyenne, Wyoming to Bear Lake area, it is very dry and very deserty. And so for them to come into a valley that was this green and this beautiful, and yes, Bear Lake is normally this green and beautiful. Even on drought years, it starts out beautifully green. We say that we're the other Ireland. But we've had a wonderful spring this spring, and we have been able to stay green for a long time. So this gives you an idea of where we're at, and we're about 7 miles from... Sorry about the semis. We are on a major Highway 30 that goes coast to coast. It's about 7 miles from the Clover Creek campsite, which is where you come visit us at the Oregon Trail. Now I'm going to swing over this way, and this is another kiosk placard that talks about the coming of the people coming west between 1841 and 1869. It talks about the manifest destiny and why they came west. This kiosk placard talks about the Oregon Trail and Idaho's immigrant trails, what trails go through Idaho specifically. And there's a lot to do and to read and be able to read. We hopefully that you will be able to come a little bit later this summer. The Oregon Trail Center is opening up July 1st, but it will only be Wednesday through Saturday, limited hours. So please call before you come. We will be giving the Living History Tour, and so you'll get a chance to be a pioneer for 30 minutes. All right, we're going to swing around and look at the placard in this direction. And it explains how it was very hot, could be very cold, wet and dry, and it was a 2,000-mile journey. And the funnest part of this placard is this is the filming that we did with PBS in 2008. We actually hooked up with our local Idaho PBS, and they came out and they filmed us coming down Big Hill. The photograph to the right, as you're looking at it, are some neighbors that live down the road, the Jensens, and they raised these oxen just for this event. And the wagon right behind them is my husband in his wagon with his horses. So that was kind of an honor to be able to get to do this. This is another shot of Quinn Jensen and his oxen that he trained to come down Big Hill with us that summer. We'll move over here to the kiosk that talks about the Big Hill. There was a choice up the way, I believe at Smith's Fork. You could either come down and cross the river 7 times and pay a toll road, or you could come over the top of Big Hill. And I can just imagine the men folks saying, well, we don't want to spend any money. We'll take Big Hill. How bad can it be? You know, South Pass really wasn't that bad. Well, about that. It was a challenging event. We made the joke with the PBS gentlemen when we filmed with them, because you know how photographers and filmmakers are. They do several takes. Oh no, we told them that this was a one-shot deal coming down Big Hill, and we didn't care if you were atheist or not. We were going to pray at the top, because that sucker is steep. It really is, and you'll see that later on when we take you to the top. But it was a very challenging hill. There were a few that rolled their wagons on it, but they didn't get their feet wet and they didn't have to spend money. So, you know, it was a challenge, but when you got to the bottom and when you finished, it really was a rewarding event. Now, I do have to tell a very personal story. My daughter and my son, my second to the youngest son and my youngest daughter, were with me the day we did that. We got out of the house and only had Cheerios for breakfast. We met everybody at the base camp and went to the top. It was a 1.5 mile hike up to the top. And then we proceeded to come down Big Hill. And the reason the Cheerios are an important part of this story is because about a quarter of the way down, I would say about noon or 2 o'clock, my children were getting hungry. And they were whining. They were probably about 8 and 10 years old. And all of a sudden we just stopped and I said to them, do you think that maybe you're reliving the lives of some other pioneer children who walked this very path, and they were hungry as well? And then we kept walking. Well, we got to the bottom of the hill and we had a little grandpa in our neighborhood who was like their second grandpa. And he took them to Arctic Circle, which is a hamburger place. And we sat down and we started to eat our hamburger, and this was like 6 o'clock at night. And I was telling Dennis what they had said and what I had told them about walking in the children's footsteps. And he just looked up at them and said, you know, Quade and Loretta, if you were real pioneer children, you would have barely killed your animal and you would start to skin it and barely start to cook it. And their eyes went big, and I think it really then hit them just how arduous the journey was on a day-to-day basis. So for my children, it was a huge teaching moment for them. Anyway, that's all I have from Big Hill right now. I better go get those groceries and get home and get things going on the gardenstead, as I call it. And I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you're able to come to Yellowstone sometime this summer or next summer and visit us at the Oregon Trail Center. Please make sure you hit like and subscribe if possible to support our employees in their endeavor to keep working until we can open July 1st. Have an awesome day and happy trails!